Welcome to News9 and you're watching On Point. Today we have 3 on points. The first on point is on the DGCA grilling the IndiGo Airlines CEO over the aviation mess. The second on point is the declaration of elections in Bangladesh in February 2026. On point 3 is on India's bad protein problem. And now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Former ISI chief Faiz Hamid, once a confidant of former Prime Minister Imran Khan, has been sentenced to 14 years in prison after being found guilty of violating the Official Secrets Act and misusing authority. The sentence follows a 15-month court-martial process. BJP MP Anurag Thakur accuses Trinamool MP of smoking e-cigarette in Lok Sabha premises. Speaker Om Birla takes notice. Delhi court rejects anticipatory bail plea of Lutera brothers even as they await deportation after being arrested in Phuket. President Draupadi Murmu commences on 2-day visit to Manipur, her first since taking office. Security tightened due to a militant called shutdown. Murder charge Darshan's new film, The Devil, releases amid fanfare. Trump's Gold Card program goes live, offering US visas starting at $1 million per person. Heavy rains inundate western Washington. A statewide emergency declared. 1 lakh state residents face risk of evacuation. The authorities are cracking down on the aviation mess created by IndiGo Airlines. On Thursday, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation grilled IndiGo Chief Executive Officer Pieter Elbers amid the chaos created by flight disruptions and the resultant customer grievances. Taking serious note of the large-scale passenger inconvenience faced by passengers due to widespread flight cancellation and delays by IndiGo Airlines, the DGCA had constituted a dedicated oversight team to be stationed at the airline's corporate office in Gurugram. In an internal order issued on Thursday, the aviation regulators stated that the move was necessitated in view of passenger inconvenience caused due to the large-scale disruptions in the operations of IndiGo Airlines at various airports across the country. Even as around 220 flights were cancelled at the 3 metro airports, a beleaguered airline launched some desperate clarifications and face-saving measures. In a statement, IndiGo said it has processed refunds for all flights cancelled during the recent operational disruption and assured that the remaining payments will reflect in customers' accounts shortly. It said it will offer Rs 10,000 travel vouchers to passengers who were stranded between December 3rd and 5th. The airline said travellers who booked their tickets through online travel platforms or third-party agents will also receive refunds. This is in addition to the government-mandated compensation of Rs 5,000 to Rs 10,000 for passengers whose flights were cancelled within 24 hours of departure. In a separate video statement, Vikram Mehta, the chairman of the IndiGo's board of directors, refuted the claim that the airline engineered the chaos to bend government rules. He claimed that debacle was not an outcome of deliberate action. But the trouble does not end here. Earlier, the Delhi High Court had questioned the centre on not taking timely action to check the crisis caused by IndiGo flight cancellations. Quote unquote, the question is, why at all this crisis arose and what have you been doing? Quote close. A bench of Chief Justice Devendra Kumar Upadhyay and Justice Tushar Rao Gidela said. Raising the issue of surge pricing, the bench also asked how other airlines could take advantage of the crisis situation and charge hefty sums for tickets from the passengers. The tickets which were available for Rs 5,000, the price went up to 30,000 to Rs 35. How could other airlines start charging? Asked the bench. Despite the desperate face-saving measures and the government cracking the whip, some moot questions remain. One was the severe lack of oversight of airline operations. Second, does India's aviation sector need urgent structural reforms? Now, the government has reduced 10% daily flights of market leader IndiGo. How will the new market look like? Fourth, why were IndiGo's directors and management oblivious to the disruptions and new pilot duty norms? And lastly, what is the learning curve? And on this issue, I am joined by Captain C.S. Randhawa, President, Federation of Indian Pilots and Deputy Chief Flight Operation Inspector, DGCA, and Captain Anil Rao, Secretary General, Airline Pilots Association of India. Thank you both of you gentlemen for joining me on my show. Let me straight away go to Captain Randhawa. Captain Randhawa, my question to you is very straight. What is the learning curve here, sir?
Good evening, Kartika. I would say many lessons are learned out of this crisis which has occurred since last so many days. First and foremost thing is we do not agree with the excuses given by the airline that they are investigating, and they're still wondering why this crisis have occurred. It is very clear why it has occurred. It is no rocket science. They knew about the shortage of pilots. So the point of contention at this moment is that, first of all, that what is the way forward? Now, the way forward, the government has taken steps in the right direction. They have, first of all, cancelled 10% of the routes. We had also suggested to the minister around 5th of December that extra routes which have been granted in the winter schedule should be cancelled for the IndiGo Airlines. That has been done. 6% were additional routes given and 10% they have cancelled. That is a point in the right direction. Those 10% flights will be undertaken by Air India, Akasa and SpiceJet. Now, the way forward is that at this juncture, where there's a monopoly of the airline, if you go and take very stringent actions against the airline, like you suspend the AOC, then there'll be turmoil in the country. So it has to be done very systematically, and there has to be heavy financial penalties on them, and they have to be reprimanded for various actions and crew shortages and not adhering to the FDTL limits and not doing proper planning. So what we feel is that it has to be done very intelligently. Otherwise, they hold 67% of the domestic traffic. So in case a very harsh action is taken to suspend an AOC, imagine it will be quite chaotic. Though CEO on the 5th has said it will take up to 15th of December. That is why you see the flights still getting cancelled. He made a statement by 10th everything will normalize. It has not, because they still are having problems with the integration of the software of the crew rostering into the network planning, because they had increased the flights, now they've reduced the flights. So they are having a lot of problem and they have no manual backup.
So you're also the Deputy Chief Flight Operations Inspector, DGCA. Do you think that there was some culpability in the sense, I was going through the data, when the FDTL suggestions went out, when it was available to them, they reduced the number of pilots. I mean to say, why would someone do that? And secondly, people think that it's about pilot rest. No, it's about passenger safety. If pilot is not rested, he does not have time, then we are not safe.
Absolutely right, Karthik. I would say that the HR department and the operations department have been napping and overlooked by the board and the CEO. It is no rocket science.
But this is criminal.
You need seven sets of pilots per aircraft, and you could do the calculation in 10-15 seconds. How many are required? Then what was the problem? Just 65 captains short and 70 first officers. IndiGo has saved around 1,200 to 14 crores of rupees for not recruiting these pilots. So they knew it 24 months back that what is the roadmap and what they have to do. So there have been a lot of lapses, as I said, and the government is taking the right action in steps, because you can't just take a harsh step, because if you take the enforcement action as per the DGCA, then you're supposed to suspend the operations. Now, in case the operations are suspended, 67% of the domestic stake is with them. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Karthik.
I'm also joined by Captain Anil Rao, Secretary General, Airline Pilots Association of India. You know, it's a lot of people will think you have a point, Captain Randhawa, but there is no consummate punishment for what the passengers underwent, just because, first of all, a monopoly built right under the government's nose. It's a monopoly. Any good, healthy economic system should not have a monopoly. It should be a diverse market. Everyone knows that. And now they are getting away with the crime because the market gets destabilized, and they, a second set of rules get, implemented for them. And at the heart of the question is the pilot's rest, and pilot's rest is for passenger safety, which is aviation safety, which again IndiGo is not implementing. Captain Rao, this question is for Captain Rao.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I missed the first part because there was a signal issue here. But I understand that what we are discussing here is about the strict implication or implementation of the FDTL norms.
Absolutely.
Which was selectively and partially been relaxed for IndiGo. Yes, coming to the point, whether monopoly, duopoly, or it has a higher share in the market or not, is not the matter of crux here, but it has to be understood and addressed that any operator tomorrow can ask for any kind of dispensation depending upon the kind of operations they are doing. Now, if today IndiGo, for example, has taken a dispensation on the night operations, basically because of the winter schedule being more increased in the night operations, and the night operations got affected because of which they asked this dispensation. Now, coming to the point two, about which has been floating around, is the pilot shortage, which exactly is not the case. Now, what happens is when you start using up the duty time as a max limitation, then to use it as a guideline to mitigate the effects of rest and fatigue, which is there. So what has happened is, what operators try to do is use these limitations as a target to exploit the rule in itself. You understand? If there is a 12-hour duty, it does not mean that every crew will do 12-hour duty every day. That is a max limitation which has been given to you. On these bases, there has to be a buffer on it and type of operation you do. You might be doing a cargo operation, you might be doing an airline operation, you might be doing a long-haul operation. So these rules are made on a maximum limitation. But what has happened is the operators have come and executed these operations, these limitations as a target to be exploited for the market or for the commercial gain. So that is what has led to this catastrophic, massive disruption. If they had not done that, and they think of course, now 2 points are there. One, talking about the FDTL maximum utilization, and number two, talking about the crew crunch, if they're saying so. Like Captain Randhawa has said, if they thought there is a crew crunch and going to happen because of their programmed or their planned operations, then what were they doing for the last 2 years? Yeah. When the other operators did not have a problem, then suddenly how did this crop up after 1 month of implementation of phase 2? That is exactly what I am also saying, that after 1 month of phase 2, why did this start? Okay. If you see, the exemptions also have been taken for the winter schedule, which ends at 10th Feb 2026. So the whole detail has not been taken to implement, say, to get out of this inconvenience. It is to meet their requirement of winter schedule, which ends at 10th Feb 2026 for all operators.
Okay.
So
okay. Captain Randhawa, do you think that there was also regulatory oversight, the government, the agencies involved, they must have some intelligence? I mean to say that, this particular big company is completely going off the charts?
See, Karthik, I'll be very blunt about it, since having worked in DGCA for a very long time. You see, there is a regulatory oversight. And there are two types of oversight which the DGCA does on all the airlines. One is a regulatory audit, which is planned every year. which is for at least for a regulatory audit which has multiple bases, it runs into about 6 to 7 days. Now, that is one part. The second part is spot checks, which are carried out by each department, whether it's operations, whether it is airworthiness, whether it's air safety. So, those spot checks are also planned, apart from special audits which may be carried out by the DGCA. Now, at present, the biggest challenge which DGCA is facing is they are working on 50% of the manpower, and their aviation industry has grown multifold. So that is one area they are having a problem. Nevertheless, they cannot wash off their hands, because after all, the oversight had to be maintained. Wherever they did not know, they have approved this winter schedule. They knew very well that if this winter schedule is operated, they don't have the requisite amount of pilots. But as I said, these are all lame excuses given by the chairman and by the CEO. There was no weather. There is no shortage of. I can understand if for shortage of crew, 50, 60, 40 flights have been cancelled. 1,500 plus flights still getting cancelled. And the DGCA now has woken up and now started the oversight after we have been demanding that please increase the oversight and check what is the problem which has happened. So now they have deputed 2 teams from today. 8 flight inspectors are checking from the operational side, and out of these, 2 will continue to carry out the oversight on daily basis. The second team is going to check about the refunds part and about the other commercial aspects. So now a 10-member team has been sent there. The second point is a high-level committee. There has been a crisis in the country. 4-people committee has been formed by DGCA, who are a party to this. How can you have a DGCA carrying out, investigation? You should have, an external body carrying out this investigation, not DGCA. So we have doubts as to what is going to be the outcome of this investigations. And they're going to try to cover up each other, because ultimately there has been a fault from all sides. Bulk of the fault is the airline, 90% plus. It is airline fault, and they thought might is right, and they will go ahead and they will do things. And DGCA used to do things they feel as per their choice. So how can anyone refuse IndiGo? So they have taken the whole country and the passengers to ransom, which is very absurd. And the problem is the government of India, even the best of the government can come over here. It is very difficult to tackle the situation who hold 67% of the air traffic in the country.
So my question is that Mr. Rao, will reduction in the 10% of their market make any difference, or the 10% flight operation, will that make any difference?
See, the reduction what they have given is not on the flights which they have asked for the winter schedule. The winter schedules flights are still going on, and not even if they give the reduction or the the removal of the extra flights. What has to be removed is the FDTL dispensation. Even if you remove or curtail the flight, doesn't mean the pilot who's flying under those rules is any less fatigued. So the primary importance here, whether you curtail the flights or not, that's besides the point. What is to be held strongly is the implementation of the FDTL rule. Even if it is for 1 flight or 2 flights or a series of flights, if you continue to give dispensation on this level, the fatigue is not going to be any less. So it is going to be a safety hazard and a compromise on passenger safety. So what are we doing about it? So the major issue or the main task here is to get away with the dispensation and get the FDTL in its totality for the spirit and the intention with which it has been made. Whether the flights are curtailed or not curtailed, the fatigue or the safety is not enhanced. So that doesn't matter.
And lastly, if you would have noticed, it is not about the want of money. It was want of will. The will was lacking. The airlines was making, Mr. Rao, huge profits. And even then they were not willing to spend a penny on pilots' welfare in terms of providing them proper rest. That is at the heart of the story. People will say, "Arey, itna management mushkil hota hai." There are, so many things have to be managed. But you are earning thousands of crores, and the pilot salaries account for, I think, 5.03%. And then the numbers of pilots went down. And even then they are in operation.
Yeah,
Mr.
so the
Rao.
whole idea is not only to increase your operations and your commercial interest, but also to save money on the salaries, because you might have to need extra crew. For that, of course, your cost company is increasing. So what these are both basically, everything is commercial interest, whether you're making profits or cutting down on your losses. Both are in commercial interest, but not in safety. Unfortunately, what has happened, it's what we are asking is, what something, God forbid, happens, and who's responsible for this? Which department will be responsible for this?
This is one question I ask of everyone, Mr. Randhawa. Do you think it's possible for management to be unaware of this issue? Is it possible for the board to be unaware? Is it possible for the management to be unaware of this issue?
Karthik, they were fully aware, 100% aware what was happening. It is the most profitable airline in the country, and they were very efficient. And you think they won't know that what is the pilot requirement, what routes they're going to do, how much flying they're going to do, when aircraft are going to get inducted. They had every bit of knowledge, but the intention was not there. Okay, so they wanted at every stage, if you see, they were wanting dispensations. Because as I said, that by not recruiting 135, 140 pilots, IndiGo has saved 12 to 1400 crores in last 1 year. So that's an additional profit. So if they can get their way by getting dispensations at the cost of the safety, that the country has to understand. But at this juncture, the minister was forced to give them a dispensation up to 10th of February when the winter cycle ends.
आप लोग insiders हैं. I want to know how long will they enjoy this leeway? How long will...
10th of February, the minister has given them this waiver on the FDTL norm. But we had, we had a meeting on the 5th of December with the minister. We were not aware. We were only aware of 2 dispensations were given in the morning by DGCA, and by evening the minister gave the entire waiver of the CR, because he wanted to normalize the situation. Whereas if you see, the situation is not normalized. Today also 220 flights plus have been cancelled. So where are we? Now the problem is that the IndiGo Airlines may not be violating the norms, may not be violating the whatever the FDTL.
But sir, why are they booking? Why are they taking passengers when they have to cancel the flights? Then why are they booking them?
Correct. Those flights required to be cancelled, and they are not cancelling in time. You see, the passengers are waiting there 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, and then they cancel the flight.
Why?
When you know fully well that this flight is not going to go, then they should cancel that flight. And this again does not require too much of effort. This can be, checked and from the systems that how many flights can go, how many flights are having technical problem, how many aircraft are due for, they are undergoing C check, D check.
Absolutely.
D check. So they know everything. They know how many crews are there at every base. They know everything. But it is, I told you over and over again, there is a mess up in their integration of the network and the crew rostering. That is the problem. Pilots are available. Now the second point is that immediately we cannot expect the minister to withdraw. Because as I said, there are large things at stake that they hold 67%. They will cancel flights. They say, okay, we don't have crew. Again, now the DGCA oversight is there. They will work out that is it genuine or not genuine. As per me, it is not genuine, because if I take 7 sets of crew per aircraft, they have got the crew.
Okay.
So there is a need to withdraw this extension.
I think what is required, sir, is an investigation into the affairs of IndiGo. I think the airline should not be allowed to get away with it. People should be made accountable from the, management level to the board, because they have created problem for the people of the country. And I think someone should, or those responsible must pay the price, because it's not about public justice, but it's about being just in a system. Thank you, both of you gentlemen, for joining me. Mr. Rao, you wanted to come? Okay, 30 seconds to you, Mr. Rao, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to tell you one thing very quickly. Today, there are two rules happening differently, one for IndiGo and one for other airlines. Now, my question is very simple. Is IndiGo pilot immune to fatigue than other pilots?
Absolutely. Thank you, both of you. So this was on point 1. Don't go away, because on point 2, we'll talk about Bangladesh declaring elections that will take place on Feb 12th, 2026, but after a short break.
$25 लाख का हॉस्पिटल बिल है, कितने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे?
पैसों की चिंता आप मत कीजिए पापा।
मैम, सर का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है।
आप
पॉलिसी बाजार
पर 0 GST के साथ अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
ओह नो, बहुत बोर लग रहा है।
Take a date, not bites.
नो एडेड शुगर, प्रिजर्वेटिव के बिना डेट्स, बादाम, पिस्ता, काजू और शहद से तैयार किया गया लायन डेट्स नट बाइट्स।
Lion date, not bites.
सर वाटर प्रूफिंग के लिए बेस्ट है।
वेंकी जी, एक छोटा सा गिफ्ट बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस देने के लिए।
ऐसा क्या है इसमें?
1 साल में वाटर प्रूफिंग को कुछ भी हुआ तो वापस करके देंगे। वो भी फ्री। पेंटिंग में पहली बार बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
Our very first Business and Economy Literature Fest 2025 on the 20th and 21st of December at Taj Talkutir, Kolkata.
EIILM presents Bomber Lorry, Associate Sponsor. Mukhara Chowk, Associate Sponsor. Alliance Broadband, Associate Sponsor.
Bangladesh Election Commission has announced that the parliamentary election will be held on February 12th. The upcoming vote will take place at a time when the nation is still grappling with the aftermath of an unprecedented political transition triggered by the 2024 student-led uprising that removed Sheikh Hasina from power after more than a decade and a half in office. According to EC officials, the upcoming vote will cover all 300 parliamentary constituencies. Former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party is widely seen as the front-runner in the upcoming polls, competing alongside the Jamaat-e-Islami Party, which has returned to the electoral politics after the interim government eased restrictions. For the first time, it will be held in conjunction with a nationwide referendum on the recently introduced July National Charter 2025, which outlines several proposed political governance and constitutional reforms. Now let's look at the key issues that are likely to be debated hotly in the run-up to the elections over the next 2 months. Restoring democracy after deadly protests that installed an unelected interim government under Muhammad Yunus. Holding a national referendum on the July Charter, which proposes more representation for women in parliament. Term limit for prime ministers, stronger presidential powers, expanded fundamental rights and judicial independence. Reviving economic stability after disruptions battered the export-driven garment industry. Repairing ties with India, tackling corruption widely seen as endemic in governance, judicial independence amid calls to overhaul court accused of politicization under previous governments. Freedom of the press after years of media crackdown and censorship. Now, BNP, led by former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, the BNP is widely seen as the frontrunner. A December poll by the US-based International Republican Institute suggested it could win the most seats. Founded in 1978 by Zia's late husband, former President Ziaur Rahman, the party says it stands out for Bangladeshi nationalism, economic liberalism and anti-corruption reforms. Its campaign faces hurdles from Khaleda's poor health and the absence of her son Tariq Rahman, the acting chief who is in exile in London. Rahman has vowed to return before the vote. Jamaat-e-Islami, the challenger. The Islamist party banned under Hasina has re-emerged after the uprising and is expected to finish second. Led by Shafiqur Rahman, Jamaat advocates Islamic governance under Sharia law but seeks to broaden its appeal beyond its conservative base. National Citizen Party, the wild card. Formed by the student leader after the uprising, the NCP, led by Nahid Islam, has struggled to convert street power into electoral strength due to weak organization and limited funds. Polls show it trailing far behind BNP and Jamaat. So the big question is, how did caretaker Prime Minister Yunus overstay his welcome? Can Yunus's close tie with Pakistan impact the elections? What is the chance of student-led party coming to power? And lastly, will this election be free and fair? On this issue, I am joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former Indian diplomat, and Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risk Analysis Group. My straight question to you, Ambassador Sikri, will this election be free and fair?
Absolutely.
And she will not get to fight the election. This lady will not get to fight the election.
Yeah,
she will not get to fight the election. The others will fight the election.
Yes, yes. So I think just the very fact that Sheikh Hasina's Awami League has been banned shows that the elections are going to be neither free nor fair nor inclusive. And if they're not free, fair and inclusive, then they cannot be credible. So I think that this is the biggest problem that we have to face, because Awami League is already threatening that if the ban on their participation is not lifted, they will go for what they call a movement, which is that. But I want to draw attention to what you have given in your assessment as the BNP being the forerunner and, Jamaat being far behind BNP and so on. I think this situation has changed totally. Earlier this week, the Pratham Alo, which is the largest Bangladesh vernacular paper, published a poll which was done by them. The dates of that poll were the end of October, so about roughly 6 to 7 weeks ago. Now, in that poll, there were two very interesting points that came out. One was that 70% of the population wants Awami League to participate. This is very significant because for the people of Bangladesh, a democratic, free and fair election can be held only if it is inclusive. So all the major political parties who are registered with the Election Commission should be allowed to participate, and then you can see what the result is. 70% want the Awami League to participate. This is very significant. Even they said unconditionally. Some people said, oh, maybe there should be some conditions, but 70% said unconditionally, let them participate. They are a registered political party. Now, in this poll at the end of October, they also asked, who will you vote for? Interestingly, the poll showed that yes, BNP has a huge lead, some 65-70%, and then is Jamaat-e-Islami 25-30%, and then but that has changed. Now, at the end, in December itself, there has been another poll released by the International Republican Institute, which is, as you know, is an American institute which has been very active in Bangladesh, and they now show that the lead of the BNP has almost disappeared, and that there is now just a 4 percentage point difference between BNP and Jamaat. So I think BNP has around maybe 33% and Jamaat has around 29%. But the most significant point is in this poll that 7% have said they are unsure and 11% just won't say. So there's a 17% undecided, which is much more than the difference in the poll numbers between Jamaat-e-Islami and BNP.
Okay.
So I think this is also from the situation on the ground. I can tell you that Jamaat-e-Islami is now leading BNP, and in all likelihood it will be a Jamaat-e-Islami government.
Okay, you're saying it's going to be Jamaat-e-Islami government. There is a cadre of Awami League. Suhas, where will that vote go? Will they go to Jamaat or is it going to go to BNP? Where will that vote go?
First of all, I think the whole election is stage managed, because if the BNP were to be allowed to form the government, the elections would have been held in the first 6 months after the fall of Sheikh Hasina. The very fact that even today Tariq Jia cannot come back from London shows that there are certain forces which do not want BNP to win the majority. And so therefore I think we have to come back to the first issue. Is the free and fair election? It's a stage managed election which is being managed by the Americans. So they already have decided as to who will come to power and who will not come to power. I think as far as the Awami League is concerned, I think for them it makes more sense to vote for the Jamaat-e-Islami, because they know that Jamaat-e-Islami coming to power will not have acceptability and it will raise questions. The first questions which will be faced if Jamaat-e-Islami comes to power, it will be the Americans, because Americans are used to supporting Islamic fundamentalist government. But a number of European governments who have been going around the US position and supporting this government as if they have been conducting free, fair elections, or they're restoring human rights or respecting human rights, they would face the questions in Europe. So I think, for Awami League, they would vote for the Jamaat-e-Islami, and that's why I think I completely agree with ma'am that the chances of the Jamaat-e-Islami winning the elections is much more than the BNP winning the elections, because there are certain quarters, not necessarily India, from the Western forces which do not want BNP to come back to power. At the end of the day, if you look at it, Tariq J is an asset of the MI6. He has been there for last over a decade. So why can't, under these circumstances, despite his mother being terribly ill, he cannot come back to Bangladesh? The fact that he cannot come back to power basically shows that they do not want him to be in Bangladesh. I think that's where the issue lies.
Okay. Ambassador Sikri, you're saying that it's going to be the Jamaat's government. So are you also saying that even the Pakistan is also going to tilt towards Jamaat and not to the student party led by Nahid, because Jamaat will require a lot of support?
No, Jamaat already has the support. In Bangladesh, there are only two cadre-based parties. One is the Awami League, the other is Jamaat-e-Islami. The BNP is not a cadre-based party. It is an urban group party. And
so what happens to the then Awami League cadre? Where does that go?
Yeah, now that is of course a very interesting point. What Mr. Suhas Sharma has also said is very valid, that the Jamaat-e-Islami is going to try to force the Awami League cadre to vote for them. There is the chance of a big campaign which the Awami League has already started, called No Boat, No Vote. The boat is the electoral symbol of the Awami League, and they are saying that if you don't allow us to participate in the election, we will not vote. And if 30-40% of the population stays away from the vote, then the election itself becomes really non-viable. It becomes really a joke, really a sham. And I think the way in which all the Awami League people are being treated is shameful. You've seen that President Shahabuddin has already said that he wants to step down early because he feels humiliated. Do you know, as President of Bangladesh, recently the Yunus regime issued an order to all foreign embassies of Bangladesh saying remove the portrait of the president. So the embassies abroad no longer have a portrait of President Shahabuddin. This is the ultimate humiliation, where while he is still in office, the Yunus regime is trying to humiliate him. I think this is really amazing that Western countries who otherwise talk about human rights and democracy and all of that are really keeping silent on this issue. As far as the NCP is concerned, the student party, they have already shown themselves to be completely toothless tigers. They have no power at all. Even in the student elections in the universities, which were held in 2 or 3 universities, they got nothing. The Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islami Chhatra Shibir got everything. BNP was trailing way behind them, and the NCP was even lower than the BNP. So you can see that what is touted as a students' uprising is shown itself that by its very character, they have no student following. Even the people who are supposed to be students are not following.
So what sort of a Bangladesh, Suhas, are we looking at? Sort of a hardened Islamic nation? Something like Afghanistan or Pakistan? What sort of Bangladesh are we looking at if Jamaat-e-Islami forms the government there?
I think we're just going to see chaos, because the whole orchestration is basically to ensure that Shahabuddin retires or is forced to retire. Then once the elections are held, there will be a coalition sort of government, because Jamaat also will not have an absolute say. Then possibly Dr. Yunus will become himself the president. Then they will remove the army chief, because they have no faith in the army chief, because army chief, apart from many other things, being a family member or a relative of former prime minister. So, this whole drama will continue. And at certain point of time, because you are not allowing the political party, Awami League, to participate in the elections, you are not confident. So we have to remember that the Awami League is not being defeated in the ballot boxes. Army League is just being prevented not to participate, and they fear that if the Army League contests the elections, possibly at this point of time, maybe they win 35% to 40% of the seats. Then you cannot form a government without the Army League. So that's why from the beginning they are very aware that if you allow the Army League to participate in the elections, then there will be chaos in the country because they don't want Army League to come back. And we must remember they had banned the Army League during May this year, but for the offences which they allegedly committed during the July uprising. But prior to that, there was a writ petition in the High Court seeking ban of the Army League. The High Court had actually rejected the petition. Now something which has already been decided by the High Court in September last year itself, immediately after the the uprising. Now High Court at that point of time did not find it fit enough to ban Army League, and suddenly you could ban it in May this year. So I think what we are going to see basically chaos in the country, because as Ambassador Sikri had mentioned, no board, that's the sign of the the Army League, the board, that they will not vote. So you cannot keep 40% of the population out of the election fray. So they are going to face a chaotic situation in the country, not an Islamic country. We are going to face chaos.
Okay, you wanted to come in, Ambassador Sikri. What does it mean for India, ma'am?
That's why I wanted to actually speak on that, because I think we have to recognize very clearly that a Jamaat-e-Islami government is going to be a clone of Pakistan.
Okay.
That is why we have to be very clear. It's going to be Pakistan's B team. Pakistan all these decades has always operated through the Jamaat-e-Islami. So Jamaat-e-Islami is very well nurtured and brought up in this same philosophy of accepting whatever Pakistan says. Even the conduit for the regime change operation was Pakistan, working through the Jamaat-e-Islami. Either the Jamaat-e-Islami pro officers in the army or other Jamaat-e-Islami cadre on the ground. So I think we have to be very clear, and I think Pakistan itself has made this very clear. As Asim Munir announcing that the next attack will be from the east, they know what they are working toward. They will always have the Jamaat-e-Islami on a very tight leash and make them do exactly what they want them to do. It's going to be a reversion to the pre-1971 situation that existed between 47 and 71. And if the Awami League were to carry out its own, threat of disturbances, there will be complete chaos in the country. And the BNP too. I mean, it's so shocking that Tariq Rahman is not being allowed to come back, even when his mother is so clearly, so desperately ill. And even his mother being taken to London for medical treatment, even the air ambulance cannot be arranged because her condition is so serious. I mean, in fact, many people are saying that she may be just on the
ventilator. So basically, two prominent national parties are being done away with.
Yes, and Jamaat-e-Islami is coming in. This is the old -2 formula which has been talked about now for at least a decade and a half. All the time since 2007 it's being talked about. And that's what they're trying to do. But we have to be very careful. India has to know that Jamaat-e-Islami is not an organization you can talk. Some people are saying,
Suhas, what does it mean for Buddhists, Chakmas and Hindus in Bangladesh?
The moment the Jamaat-e-Islami come to power, there is no space for them whatsoever. And that's why I think there is a security risk for India, because the moment Jamaat-e-Islami comes to power, we will have problems in the northeast. We will have the Rohingyas, trying to make entry into Arakan region. And I think we have to bear in mind that the entire South Asia, there could be, a threat to regional peace and security, because whether we like it or not, there is going to be conflict in Arakan in an intensive way, in more than what we have seen in the last 70 years. I think the Rohingyas are going to fight back, that to return to that country. Then Hindus in the mainland India, in mainland Bangladesh, and the tribals in the CHT, I don't think they will have any space.
Okay. Thank you. And we will be, to our viewers, we will be covering this election. We will be sending our reporters there. So this was on point 2. But don't go away, because on point 3 is on India's bad protein problem. Do you have it? Nearly half of India's at-home protein now comes from batch sources and cereals such as rice, wheat, suji, maida, according to a new study by the think tank Council on Energy, Environment and Water. The findings are based on the latest 2023-24 National Sample Survey Office Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. A rich protein diet supports the body's growth, repair and immune function. However, the study suggests that while Indians are eating more protein overall, much of it comes from food that offers lower quality amino acids and poorer digestibility than other protein sources. On average, Indian consumes 55.6 grams of protein a day at home, adequate by national standards, but cereals account for nearly 50% of the intake, far higher than the National Institute of Nutrition's recommended 32%. Pulses, traditionally a staple source of protein, now account for only 11% of the protein intake, falling significantly short of the recommended 19%. Coarse grain like jowar, bajra and ragi have seen a steep of 40% drop in per capita consumption in a decade. The dominance of the poor sources of protein comes at the cost of better quality protein sources such as pulses, dairy, eggs, fish and meat. The study also paints to consistent underconsumption of vegetables, fruits and pulses alongside excess intake of cooking oil, sugar and salt. The good sources of protein includes pulses, dairy products, eggs, fish and meat. Cereals lack lysine, an essential amino acid critical for growth, required for muscle maintenance and other psychological functions, says the author of the study. Bad sources of protein in our diet include cereals, rice, wheat, suji and maida. In predominantly vegetarian states in northern India such as Rajasthan, Haryana and Gujarat, dairy products emerge as the primary source of high quality protein. In contrast, in largely non-vegetarian regions like northeast, coast to south and the parts of eastern India, eggs, fish and meat play a more dominant role. India's protein intake has increased only marginally, but disparities remain pronounced. Richest 10% of Indians consume approximately 1.5 times more at-home protein than the poorest 10%. Animal-based protein consumption shows the widest gap. Poorest rural households meet only 38% of the recommended daily allowance for eggs, fish and meat, while the wealthiest exceed the recommendation at 123%. Milk consumption shows a similar pattern with only one-third of the recommended level among the poorest compared with the over 110% among the highest expenditure group. Earlier, ICMR had warned that 83% of the Indian adults have at least one metabolic risk factor, including high BP, high cholesterol, obesity or diabetes. Traditional diets and active routines have been replaced by sedentary living and meals loaded with carbohydrates. Shifting to protein-rich diets may be the answer. Are we staring at a protein crisis in India? On this issue, I am joined by Dr. Shikha Sharma, founder of One Health and a veteran nutritionist. My question to you is straight and simple, madam. How do we resolve this issue of bad protein sources in our country?
See, the first thing which I think is very important is that if we start having local produce like ragi, like jowar, like bajra, and also have local leafy vegetables like mustard greens, like beet greens, like moringa leaves, which is available all over India, we can turn the tide on this protein deficiency. Why? Because if you really notice, the problem of protein deficiency comes because whatever people are eating, they're eating wrong. More of refined food, more of suji, more of maida, rather than having whole grains and also having a variety of grains. Like I said, millets for vegetarians is a great source of protein. Soya is there, of course. Dairy, if in villages or if they, whatever little they can afford. But that variety will come from millets, from greens. Like, for example, in winters, you get sarso, you get mustard greens. Moringa is a very reliable source of protein. So all this when we combine together, like khichdi. When we talk about khichdi, if we make a millet khichdi with some chana and some millets, or if we have mungfali, peanuts. So I think it is more about realizing that these are good sources of protein rather than saying that everybody cannot afford protein. So I think if we are able to educate people to eat local and eat fresh from the farms, some part of this problem can be resolved.
So you are saying it's not what we eat, it is also how we eat, how we cook our food. But madam, please break the myth around vegetarianism. How do vegetarians get good protein?
Yes. So now let's talk about two different kinds of vegetarians. The first kind of vegetarian is who are eating suji, maida, refined flour, samosa, fried food, and almost no vegetables or fruits. In the strictest sense, they might be having a so-called vegetarian diet, but they are not actually having a healthy vegetarian diet. Now, if we look at healthy vegetarians, where they are having fruits, they are having vegetables, a lot of people will say, how can the poor man eat fruits and vegetables? But even there, like guava, like amla, like til seeds, like mungfali, some of these are very local foods which are grown locally also, which can be eaten. So that is very much affordable. Gur and chana in winter. So combination of iron